o'clock. It is a day behind. Had some work to do yesterday, so we did bump it one day. So thanks for hanging with us. And our show is brought to you by no other than El Cajon Restaurant down there in Pike Place Market between Wednesday and Sunday, 4 to 9 p.m. Mention this show, get 20% off your bill, say hi to Linda, and try some Peruvian food. If you haven't had it, it's amazing. So definitely check them out. And the Seahawks are coming off a win, which I have to admit, in our pick'em, I did pick against them. It's tough to win a game when both of your offensive tackles are out and so many just guys that are banged up on the defensive side of the ball. I was worried about them being able to move the ball pretty easily, and some of the time they were. The middle of the field is definitely still a concern. We had 4 different linebackers that had some sort of injury and or didn't practice at all. So that was a cause for concern going into that game, which is why I ended up picking against them. So far, the Seahawks have I've been 0-2 picking the Hawks. So I've either picked with them and they lost to the Rams, and then I picked against them and they pull out the win in overtime. So never know what the Hawks are going to do. This particular week, I think they have a good shot, although with Bryce Young out, I actually think the Panthers have a better chance with Andy Dalton than what we've seen out of Bryce Young. But let's go over this Lions game a little bit. They did have a really nice opening drive to get down and score, which sort of set the tone for the Hawks. One thing, for whatever reason, Seattle's had a real tough time actually scoring in the red zone. It's been quite a few drives that stall or they get a field goal or something, but a lot of them have not been punched into the end zone. So it was nice to see them get down, score, and have a real nice fluid opening drive. That being said, there was still quite a few mistakes on this opening drive. There were 5 penalties between the two teams. Seattle had 2 for 9, Lions had 3 for 15, all on the opening drive. So it looked like it was going to become a very sloppy, kind of ugly game. They did kind of reel it back in, so it wasn't they weren't on pace to set any records or anything, but to start the game out, kind of some sloppy play, but they were able to drive down, score, and so that was great. Then, of course, on that drive, DK gets injured, gets that rib injury, did come back later in the game, but, didn't have as big of an impact as you would hope that he would. Naturally, it was the Tyler Lockett game, and he's that security blanket for him. So you knew that that's what that was going to be. He gets a pair of scores, one of them in overtime, which was awesome. Great way to finish that up. And I mean, these two teams play each other tough no matter what. They played each other each of the last 3 years. Seattle has won all 3, but they've all been kind of shootout style games. Last year, there was 93 points scored in it. So, it's quite a few battles with Detroit. Seattle figures out how to get those wins. So on that defensive side, like I said, there was a lot of injuries, not necessarily that caused them to be out of the game, but with so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball for Seattle, the middle of the field still was pretty wide open. Goff had plenty of time to get to those middle spots. And that's going to continue to be a problem moving forward. The defense did look a little bit better than it did the first week. And, that's not an indictment on the Lions. They can put up points. So that is encouraging that this unit is starting to, get a couple of things together, even though there's quite a few guys that are banged up. It's nice to see them kind of, at least, even if it's not consistently, they're getting some stops and defensive passes, through the middle of the field, which they really didn't in week 1. And then, of course, Myers misses a couple of field goals. That is something that definitely has to be tightened up moving forward. Now, in this particular game, they ended up getting the win anyway, but there's a lot of times, especially with some of the teams that they're going to face as this year goes on, that it may come down to a field goal. And, both of those were very makeable distances. So it's not like they were asking him to kick it from 60 yards. They were very makeable ranges, and, they just weren't on target. So hopefully we can get that buttoned up. Myers is a good kicker, so I have all the faith that he will be able to do that. But missing a couple of kicks can definitely lose you a game down the line here. There was a busted coverage on that flea flicker. Kudos to the Lions getting that done. Your safety didn't stick with him, and I mean, that's kind of what those flea flickers are designed for, is to get somebody to bite and create some confusion, spring a guy on the backside. It worked beautifully for the Lions. If you like defense, you're a little bit mad that somebody didn't stay home, but at the end of the day, it worked exactly how they drew it up. So good on them. The running game struggled to get going. So, and it made sense that they were going to struggle. Again, you didn't have either one of your starting tackles, right? Lucas is out on IR. Cross was out. They were running a lot of, 13 personnel, which is, a running back, 3 tight ends, and a receiver. And, they had those tight ends in there to help with that, struggling offensive line, especially because there's so many backups and just injured players on that offensive line for Seattle. It was a really great game scheme to have, the 3 tight end sets to help kind of block up the front. And then, of course, you got Walker also providing some pass protection blocking during the, some of those pass plays. So with as beat up as that offensive line was, Seattle had a really nice scheme to help protect Geno. I believe he only got sacked once. I could be wrong, but I think he only got sacked once and really wasn't moved off his spot a whole ton, especially when you consider what he had in front of him. So kudos to that coaching staff to get those guys in there to run some stunts and protect Geno. And of course, the red zone struggles continued really all game. Something that they've struggled with, in both of the games so far this season. And, some of it you blame on the offensive line having some issues, and some of it you just have to figure out how to finish, right? Because it may have worked against the Lions. It will probably work against the Panthers. Realistically, it might have even worked against the Rams if they played a little better, everywhere else. But man, it's they need to be able to finish drives, because when they end up meeting up with San Fran and the Eagles and the Cowboys, not being able to punch it into the end zone is probably going to be an L. And so they really need to get this figured out here in the next game or two to be able to finish drives. One thing about Seattle, though, is they have seemed to be a team that has gotten better as the year goes on the last couple of years. And so you're really hoping that this defense will take that same trajectory where they kind of build as each week goes by. And the offense isn't quite where it was last year, but I think that's something that's going to end up getting there, as DK gets healthy. He's going to be dealing with a little bit of rib pain. I think he is a go for this game, though. And then JSN getting out there. So hopefully this offense can, really get rolling and start punching it in the end zone. So there was the hilarious video of the ref saying, "Hey, Geno, I'm talking to America here." And absolutely hilarious soundbite, priceless. But Geno had a legitimate gripe on that play. Now, there wasn't great officiating through this game anyway, so it's not like I'm blaming one side or the other. Everybody had bad calls during that game. But that intentional grounding call was hilarious, because that was just a miscommunication. And it really didn't seem like it was in the spirit of an intentional grounding call. Usually an intentional grounding is you are within the grasp or clearly going to get sacked, and you throw it, and there's no receiver around. That makes sense for an intentional grounding. A guy running a different route than what you drew up, he had plenty of protection. There was nobody near him. So for him to get that intentional grounding call was a little bit ridiculous. But again, the soundbite was absolutely amazing. So I'm not mad at it at all. Ultimately, if any one call makes you lose the game, there are a dozen other reasons why you lost that game outside of that call. Now, there have been ones where the call has made the difference, like there's a holding call that doesn't get called or a pass interference or something like that. obviously that can be the thing. But generally, if there is a missed call or a bad call during the game, there's a million other reasons why you'd lose the game outside of one call. So I never really put a lot of stock in, people freaking out because there was a bad call. It's like, yeah, but I mean, there were other drives that you probably should have scored on that you didn't. So, did that one call really make a difference? Or do you just not want to admit that your team couldn't get it done in, one particular week? So there is that. Let's see, the pick six, that was a huge thing, especially as efficient as Goff had been. So, and honestly, that was the big difference in this game in general, was the turnovers for Detroit. Because if you look at just the numbers across the board, statistically, the Lions basically owned every statistical category except the turnovers. And, they turned it over 3 times. Ultimately, that is probably, especially the pick six, that is what games come down to all the time. You can have a team that is better, but if you're losing the turnover battle, similar to what the Bills did week 1, you turn the ball over that many times, you're going to lose, just is what it is. So it's Trey Brown, though, came in for Woolen, right? And so he got that pick six. He had an incredible fourth quarter. So I do like what I'm seeing out of the depth at the corner position. He ended up with a sack, a pick six, 2 passes defended, 1 tackle for loss, and 4 total tackles. So, I mean, that is a stat line that you hope for during an entire game, and he got it in 1 quarter. So Trey Brown looks like he is a dude out there. So if Woolen or, like any of the corners go down and he has to come in, that looks like a really solid option. So nice to see how much depth there is in this secondary, and they're going to need some of it. Kobe Bryant is going to miss this game. He has been ruled out this morning, so he won't be in there tomorrow. Heavy workload for the tight end group, which is good. Again, they provided a lot of protection for Geno, and ultimately that was a lot of the difference in this game. Not only were the turnovers there, but he had some time, he had protection, and he distributed the ball pretty well. So it's encouraging moving forward. Again, like I think everything is growing. It's just a little bit slower than you'd like it to be if you are a Seattle fan. And then, of course, they get the win in overtime, the ultimate security blanket in Tyler Lockett. And, he gets that catch to the right side, hits the pylon, game over. I made a joke at the beginning of, right after the coin flip. I was like, we want the ball, we're going to score. Obviously, if you are a Hawks fan, you remember when Hasselbeck said that. Now, he threw a touchdown pass, just wasn't our team. But, I mean, he did score technically, I guess. All right, so we got some questions. And so some of them are about the Hawks. Some of them are just for me, I guess, in general. So one of them is, all right, so PFF lists the Seahawks safeties bottom 3 in the league. So they had them literally consecutive bottom 3 in the league. And I don't know what PFF is doing here, because clearly these guys aren't the worst 3 safeties in the league. And even if you look at passes completed and stuff like that, they weren't defensive passes, right? Like they were received in a soft zone. So this is game strategy. It's not that they couldn't cover. So I don't like that PFF does that, but PFF puts out all kinds of crazy stats that don't make any sense. So I feel like they're just putting out opinion pieces similar to everybody else. Yes. Mr. Yu, thanks for dropping in, buddy. Yes. I don't know that anybody really trusts PFF, but I do get asked about PFF rankings a lot. And I appreciate you saying I had good analysis on the game. Anyway, I don't think they have the worst safeties. I believe that their rankings will obviously increase as the year goes on. Certainly as some of our defensive players get healthier, they do they play this week, they have next week. And then as much as I hated the idea of having a game 5 or week 5 bye week, it might actually work out for the Hawks just because there are 14 guys on the injured list that are all, questionable or in or whatever. And that 14 doesn't include the guys that are on IR. So brutal. Just kind of a brutal amount of guys that are already injured. So I guess having an early bye week may help them out. Do I like flat bills or normal hats? So despite what you'd see on screen here, I am not a flat bill fan per se. I typically use a traditional baseball cap. The problem with one of these is on camera, it blocks the light. And then I basically just have like raccoon eyes here. So when I'm on camera, if I'm wearing a hat, it's a flat bill. It allows the light in. So that is why we go this route. Let's see what they do on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, Twitter's a funny place though. There's a lot of misinformation that bounces around Twitter. So I don't put a lot of stock in any of the things that I see on there. Whenever I see anything either being like a story being broke or whatever, I always go and see if I can find it somewhere else, because unless it's coming from, Rappaport or Shefty or something like that, I typically go and find a different, really a different place to, a more reputable place than if I'm just, somebody tweeted it, because it may hit Twitter first, but it doesn't always mean that it's accurate. So you'll never see me trying to break a story or anything like that. I don't care about being first. I want it to be accurate. So if somebody else can be first, and if it's accurate for them, awesome. And then if it's not, then they have to walk it back and all of that. So that's not something I ever want to try and do. I would rather not be the first, but have an accurate take on it than say a bunch of stuff and none of it's accurate. So that's kind of my stance there. Let's see. Biggest surprise of the game, Trey Brown, right? Coming in at corner and putting out a crazy amount of stats for one quarter of play. So Trey Brown was the surprise on the Seattle side for me. Yeah. Does Adams come back this week? Man, I feel like I'm going to get this question every week until he comes back. So that I don't know. I mean, it really depends on what he looks like in practice. And of course, none of us, unless you're inside the facility, really know. So I'm going to go with, if he does, similar to what I said last week, if he does end up being a go, it's not going to be 100% every play anyway. Could they use his athleticism? Of course. The thing is, he was coming back from injury, and then during coming back, now he's injured his knee. So I don't think they're going to bring him back any sooner than, potentially makes sense, right? Like the last thing I want to do is rush him out and then lose him for a season yet again. So I'm going to go with probably not, or if he does, he plays on an extremely limited play count. But do I think he becomes a huge factor in the game? Probably not, even if he plays. Let's see. We got how many players are on this week's injury list? 14. So 26% of the team was put on that injury list going into this week. So, actually still on that as of this morning. So now all of them are just listed as questionable. The Seahawks are the absolute worst about actually reporting who's in and out. Like if you look at the Panthers IR list, theirs was posted, or not IR, but their injury list on who's in and out. Theirs was out yesterday, day before, something like that, for the guys that aren't going to be playing. And Seattle really won't put one out until just before game time. So for the purpose of this show, it's really annoying. Honestly, if you're a fantasy fan, if you have any one of those players, you don't know if you should start them or not, because they just put guys in the questionable designation and then just kind of leave them there. So from that standpoint, the Hawks do some annoying things there, but yeah, there's 14 on that injury list. So doesn't inspire a lot of confidence as far as everybody being healthy and ready to go. All right. Let's see. We got, what is your least favorite era of the Seahawks? So there's two different schools of thought there. So if we're talking about wins, then the early 90s would be my least favorite Seahawk era, because we were just really bad. Like it was a horrible team. There was not a lot of winning. But it's also one of my favorite eras because, my dad and I went to a lot of the games then, and we got to go hang out in the Kingdom. So it was, like we didn't get to watch a lot of wins, but it was a fun time. And, going to the Kingdom, if you never got to go, you missed an experience. Like, was it a beautiful building? No. It was just this concrete monstrosity, but it was such a cool place to go. And the noise was unreal. If you think Lumen is loud, the Kingdom was insane. So, it's kind of two different schools of thought there. If it's just truly on Seahawk football, 92, I've said it before, Tom Flores as a coach, they went 2-14. Like, it was not a good team. But, through the 90s, watching, going to games with my dad or, with our whole family or whatever, that was probably one of the more fun times at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Let's see. What is a Seahawk? Well, a Seahawk's not a real bird, but it's modeled after the osprey. So that's kind of that. Must not be a Seahawk fan, but thanks for jumping in. I appreciate the question being asked. Is Geno that guy? So near as we can tell, he is. Is he gonna light up a scoreboard and do a bunch of crazy athletic stuff? No, he's not. But he's gonna go out there and he's gonna win games because he plays within the system. He's smart with the ball. He protects it. He's willing to throw it away when a play's not there. He distributes the ball very well. There's been games where he'll have 8 or 9 different targets. So is he that guy? It depends on what it is you mean by that. Is he a guy you can go out and win with? Absolutely. Is he going to do some Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow type crazy athletic plays? No, but you don't need him to. If he can manage the system that you have, that's all you need. That's all Brock Purdy does. It's not like Brock Purdy goes out and does anything spectacular as an athlete. He's just smart with the ball, distributes it well, and lets his guys make plays. And essentially that's what Geno Smith does. So if we're talking about if he's that guy, sure. Completion percentage, accuracy, decision-making, it's all the things that you need in your quarterback. And, are you going to, would he be that guy in the final drive to make some crazy off balance, falling out of bounds, throw across the body and complete it for, a touchdown or something? No, he's probably not that guy. Hopefully your team doesn't put you in a situation where you have to play that way. So do I think he's that guy? Near as I can tell, he is. What happens if Bobby Wagner gets hurt? So, nothing good. Our linebacking core is not amazing. So if you ended up having B-Wags go down hurt, that is not going to be a great mix. So hopefully he doesn't. He's one of the guys that's not on the injury list, thankfully. But if he gets hurt, that's the heart of the defense. So, man, it would be an ugly thing for, the entire defense, but certainly the front seven. He really kind of runs that. So if he were to get hurt, it would be a real bummer. All right, we got, is DJ Dallas really the best kick return option for the Seahawks? So his numbers aren't amazing. So I get the question. He's not ripping off tons of yardage or anything like that. But the one thing I will say is it keeps him involved in the game. So when he does come in as a running back, he's not coming in cold, because he still gets, quite a few carries, even with Charbonnet and Walker. Like, he'll get carries back there. So getting him involved in special teams is good. Keeps him involved in the game. The other thing that about it is he doesn't fumble the ball. He is very sure-handed, and he can take a hit. So he can continue to hold on to the ball even if he's getting hit. Like he doesn't signal for a fair catch and gets lit up as he's catching it. He can hang on to that. It's one of the things that was always frustrating with like Tyler Lockett is his speed is obviously better. His elusiveness is better, but he did fumble the ball quite a few times as a kick returner. So does DJ Dallas give you the, home run special teams guy? Like, is he going to return one for a touchdown? I mean, probably not. Like the blocking scheme would have to be perfect and some people would have to leave their lanes, play some undisciplined special teams. And could he do it in that scenario? Of course. But by and large, is he going to create the miss and go? Probably not. He's probably not that guy. But because of ball security, I would say that it's a good thing for him to be back there. Again, just because the other guys that we've had have had a tendency to fumble. And, yeah, you may not get all the yardage, but you keep the ball. And I'll take ball security over an extra, 5 or 6 yards on a kick return. Is DK going to get another penalty this week since he didn't get one last week? That's a fair assessment. Yeah. Probably, right? Like the first game, he gets one. He ended up getting fined. I think it was like $10,000, something like that. And then he didn't get one last week because, Pete Carroll had another sit down with him. Hey, you got to not get these penalties and whatever. But he seems to get one just about every other game. So if there was an over under on DK getting an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty this game because he didn't get one last game, I would absolutely take that bet that he would. So, I mean, it just is who DK is. So I haven't seen any coaching really get that out of him. Like it may work for a week or two, and then he's kind of right back into continuing to play after the whistle's blown and getting that 15-yarder drive killer. So do I think he'll get one this game? The odds are pretty good. I'd like to say no, but I mean, based on the history with DK, I mean, yeah, he's probably will. All right, so let's get into our breakdown. Oh wait, I missed one from Mr. U here. Traditional cap guy. Thank you for teaching in teaching in the flat bill. Yep. Now, I mean, you have to because again, especially because I really like to curl the bill. So since the lighting is around me, it really just puts a wicked shadow on my face, and that doesn't make any sense when you are on camera. So that's why I wear a flat bill, but definitely a traditional ball cap kind of person. All right, so we got our Panthers, Seahawks. Hawks are coming home. Place is going to be electric, and the noise is always fantastic in Lumen. If you haven't been to Lumen Field, definitely come to Seattle sometime. Watch a game there. The energy is amazing. So absolutely a stadium worth visiting. Generally, in most of the stadium rankings, it ranks somewhere in the top 10 as far as stadiums around the league. So definitely worth coming. Get some of the garlic fries. They're fantastic. So yeah, as we come into this game, Bryce Young injured his ankle last week on Monday night against the Saints. And so he was ruled out today or last night. And so Andy Dalton gets the start. I'm actually more worried about the 3-time Pro Bowler Andy Dalton coming in and winning than I was over Bryce Young. It still didn't change the line. The line is still 6 points. So Vegas doesn't think anything different with a quarterback change. But, at the end of the day, you got some veteran leadership there. Granted, Andy Dalton isn't the quarterback that he used to be. But that being said, if he gets protection, he's another one of those vets that can pick apart a defense. So Seattle's really going to have that defensive line, get some penetration, move him off his spot. Even if they don't get sacks, he's just not the most mobile guy. So if they can get him off his spot, make him make athletic plays, that'll be a good opportunity for our secondary to get some interceptions or at least defense passes. So hopefully with Dalton coming in, that front seven can protect the middle of the field and really produce some, produce some pass rush. That's one of the things that has been a little bit frustrating for the Seattle team is that front seven still isn't great. I thought they were going to make a bigger step forward this season than they have thus far. Obviously some of that is they have guys that are banged up. They're still on the field, but they're hurt, so they're not necessarily moving with the same speed they normally would. But they're really going to need some, penetration to keep Andy Dalton moving. Because if Andy Dalton has the time that like Stafford did, Andy Dalton can definitely do some damage there. So hopefully they can get that pass rush going. They'll probably also need to do more of those 3 tight end sets that they used so well against the Lions last week. So obviously Lucas is still on IR. He has another couple weeks of that. And that's if he comes back as early as he possibly can. And then Cross is ruled out for this game as well. So neither one of their starting tackles are available in this game. The week before last, they started signing, last week, they signed a couple of offensive tackles, 2 veterans and 2 guys off the practice squads. I don't know if any of them are listed as coming in for this week. I didn't see that officially, but if not, they're going to need that 3 tight end set again, just because Geno's going to need that protection. So I would imagine seeing more of that. Geno will also probably need to be the same efficient guy. At the end of the day, although the Panthers really can't do a lot on offense, at least they haven't shown that they can. Their defense is relatively good. So Geno will have to still be smart with the ball, play the kind of ball that he's been, right? Like he's played everything he did last year. He's brought into the first 2 weeks of this year. Obviously his numbers weren't great in week 1, but he lost both his tackles and he spent a lot of time on the carpet. So tough to complete a lot of passes when you're laying on the ground. So I don't really fault Geno for that so much. I fault the coaching staff that first week for not really pivoting. Now, there's no way you were going to know that the step down from your starters to your second string guys was going to be quite as drastic as it was, and put Geno in as much harm as he was in. But yeah, well, we'll have to make sure that Geno is still being smart with the ball, because that defense will be opportunistic if he's off target at all. All right. Had a little drop in signal there. So coming into this game, the Hawks are 6-point favorites. The quarterback change didn't make that any different. What worries me about this is everyone in the media is taking the Hawks over the Panthers. And those are the games that somehow Seattle loses. Like they find it. It's a little bit frustrating as a Hawks fan, because when they are heavy favorites to win, they kind of play down to competition, which is, it's never fun to watch. But with everybody taking them, I much prefer this Hawks team to be the underdog. They seem to fight harder. A lot of teams do, but Seattle really does. So for them to be a 6-point favorite, I still take the Hawks to win. They're at home, but I don't know that they cover. And again, it's one of those, like, from the outside, when everybody is picking them, they do things that they shouldn't do. So, but I still take Seattle to win for sure. And then, of course, we're going to need Myers to be able to make those kicks. Again, none of them were extraordinarily long. They were relatively routine lengths, especially for Myers, because he has, quite a bit of a leg. He can hit them from 60. So the kicks that he missed were really just bad kicks. They weren't, outside of his range or, trying to overpower the ball or anything like that. They were just bad kicks overall. So we're going to need a little bit more consistent play out of the kicking game. Definitely need every bit of the precision that Geno shows he can do, and going to need that defensive line to get home to keep Dalton off his spot. Those are the main things that I need to see out of this game, because, you know, after that, you're going to have, you're going to have some tougher games on the schedule. So you need to see some of these some of these little problems, little quirks get worked out before you get to the bulk of their schedule. Again, you know, they have this game, next game, and then they got a bye week. They can try and get some of these guys healthy and hopefully get ready for the heart of this, you know, schedule, where it's going to be very tough, and it's going to be against some of the better teams in the NFC. So they still have the Eagles, the Cowboys, 2 games against the Niners, obviously the Rams again. You know, I'm not super worried about the Arizona, right? I'm not super worried about the Cardinals, other than they've found a way to hang out in most of the games they've been in. So the NFC West is going to cannibalize itself a little bit, just like it does every other year. But, you know, they really need to split with the Rams, and they really need to split with the Niners. They got to be able to show themselves that they can win one of those games, because inevitably they'll probably face the Niners again in the playoffs if Seattle makes it. So that's really the main takeaways that I'm looking for going into tomorrow's game. Be sure to like, subscribe, and of course, during the week, find me on Twitter. Give me your questions throughout the week for next week's show. I try and answer as many of them as I can. They can obviously be about the Seahawks. They can be about, you know, my take, or if you have a theory that you want my take on, you know, be sure to send those along. Other than that, we will let you get back to this beautiful Saturday. It's a little bit soggy here, but hopefully it's a little sunnier in your neck of the woods. And other than that, we will see you next week. Actually, tune in tomorrow morning. Now that I say that, we have our NFC West crew on the Let's Talk Sports Network, and of course, right here on Football Talk. So definitely come say hi. That will be at 9 a.m. Pacific. And yeah, all right. Oh, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Pacific. A little bit of a mess over here. Sorry, guys. All right.